out there, and I see our calling guests, both John Wells and Vic Vicious, in the queue. Stand by, gentlemen. We're going to go to Rick with the news, as we do every week, but I did want to just make an announcement. Jamie, Rick, you guys need to be here. I almost just got a fist fight with Chad. I don't like what he's saying here. We're going to have to fix that. Just kidding.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
And without further ado, the one and only Rick Thompson of the Compassion Chronicles with the news. Rick, take it away.
Thanks, everybody. This is the news. I'm Rick Thompson. It's June 5th, 2014. The Rohrabacher Farr Amendment was a big news story last week as it passed the full U.S. House of Representatives. The amendment's now part of an appropriations bill and has been widely reported to prevent the DEA from making marijuana raids in states where legal or recreational marijuana laws exist. But will it do that? If the bill does pass every remaining hurdle, amendment intact, it may not actually be the game changer some are anticipating. Jeremy Daw, who is a Harvard Law School graduate and the editor-in-chief of The Leaf Online, told news media San Diego Online that the language of the amendment is too weak. He writes that as if the amendment is unlikely to actually prevent federal raids of marijuana facilities. Quote, the amendment would only prohibit the DOJ from targeting states in attempts to interfere with their own implementation of their own laws concerning medical marijuana. That's a clear reference to federal authority, but no protections for patients or collectives are specified in the amendment. Thus, while the Rohrabacher Amendment is undeniably a win for medical marijuana cannabis advocates, its passage would merely codify a policy which the DOJ has already voluntarily agreed to. According to that media source, in places like California and Michigan, where the laws aren't very specific, there may be no new protections for patients or collectives in that amendment. And additionally, the way the amendment's written, it only lists pre-existing medical marijuana states, name by name. So if a state were to pass a medical marijuana law this year, say New York, for example, they would not be protected by that amendment. However, one of the bright spots in the article, a reported statement from a veteran Michigan legislator. Democrat Carl Levin of Michigan said, flat out, he has no problem with decriminalization. Now, if we can just get his relative, Sandy Levin, to come to the table on marijuana law reform. Sandy Levin was the lone Michigan Democrat to vote against that Rohrabacher Farr Amendment in the U.S. House vote. How about another story of a former Michigander? This one's involved in the medical marijuana industry outside of our state. Its physician and former Ann Arbor marijuana certification clinic operator, Dr. Bodo Ian Schneider. That's his real name. He first got interested in medical marijuana in Michigan 3 years ago, and he and his business partner started a certification clinic in Ann Arbor. But when Illinois legalized medical marijuana, the two partners decided to open an office in Marion and also opened one in Orland Park, which is just south of Chicago. How's that going for him, you might want to ask? Well, once a person is certified as medically qualified, he or she can get marijuana at one of up to 60 dispensaries. At the moment, there aren't any. Dispensaries can get their marijuana from one of up to 22 cultivation centers. There aren't any of those either. For that matter, people can't even get certified yet. But you know what? That didn't slow those Michiganders down. Now, they've got about 400 patients to the clinic. The law in Illinois is more restrictive than the one in Michigan, and the doctor who certifies the patient must have a, quote, long-term relationship, unquote. So that's what Dr. Bodo is doing, treating people now and establishing those long-term relationships to make valid medical marijuana certifications once Illinois gets on the ball. I know you'll love to hear that, Michael. Now, the Illinois Department of Professional Registration is not sure how to handle Dr. Bodo. They did subpoena some of his charts and records when he prescribed a drug with synthetic THC in it, but so far, nothing has come of that. Hey, how about the United States by the numbers? Let's look at some of these figures, because the U.S. is riding that green tsunami. Cannabis is medicine in at least some form in 22 states and the District of Columbia. And we know Colorado and Washington this year have recreational use laws, but more than 24 states are considering new or expanded marijuana reform legislation, including complete legalization for adults, medical marijuana laws, hemp use, and even decriminalization. Minnesota, as we know, passed a medical marijuana law with CBD only. And there are 14 other states that have reform bills or ballot initiatives on the table. 12. 12 is a good number. That's the number of states and D.C. that are considering decriminalization, including Michigan. How about the number 11? That's the number of states considering legislation to establish effective medical marijuana programs. And 4 states are considering industrial hemp cultivation, again, including Michigan, Indiana, New York, and Tennessee. Now, advocates for full legalization, including recreational use, see the most hope for further victories in Alaska, where we'll have a vote in November, and then California and Oregon may go in 2015. All 3 of those states currently have medical marijuana programs. And, Michael, this is a story that will work right in with the whole theme of tonight's broadcast, too. On June 4th, the Heritage newspaper group published a great story about medical marijuana and the various ways communities are adapting to a more accommodating attitude. The article contained wonderful quotes from Jamie Lowell and from Michael Camoran, but what caught my eye was this little snippet about the city of Saline, located just outside of Ann Arbor. Todd Campbell, Saline city manager, said the city of Saline currently has a moratorium on issuing permits or licenses for the sale or dispensation of medical marijuana. In 2010, the city adopted the Livonia model. Now, the article states, quote, that the Ter Beek decision forced them to abandon this concept, but listen to how they said it. Saline is currently in the process of drafting and revising a new ordinance that would regulate medical marijuana caregivers and patients, but would not allow dispensaries. And it would regulate the legal use allowed under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. End quote on that story from the Heritage newspapers. It seems backwards that a ruling that prevented the city of Wyoming from infringing on patients and caregivers is now being cited as a basis upon which the city of Saline is creating an ordinance to, quote, regulate the legal use allowed under law. Beyond that individual contradictory statement by the city, that article had some great quotes, including Jamie Lowell saying this: people's lives are being saved, people's quality of life is being improved. That should really be appreciated and celebrated. And, of course, Michael Camoran said what we are always thinking, quote, Bill Schuette has caused more challenges to the implementation of the Medical Marijuana Act than anybody. It's not even based on rational thought. He's literally obsessed with blocking implementation. Folks, we'll end it on that thought. It's June 5th, 2014. I'm Rick Thompson. This is the news. Thanks for listening.
Rick, great stuff. And we missed you here tonight. I told you you could have